Coming up on Network Africa, the EU plans to ban purchase, import and transfer of Sudanese gold to help curb sources of financing for the devastating conflict. President Bassirou Faye appoints veteran magistrate Ousmane Diané as president of the Senegalese Constitutional Council. The Central African Republic steps up response to its first cholera outbreak. Thanks again for joining us at this time. I'm Amarachi Ubani here in Lagos. We begin with the European Union's ban on the purchase, import and transfer of Sudanese gold in a bid to curb sources of financing for the country's devastating conflict. The decision includes targeted exemptions such as gold intended for humanitarian purposes, public health emergencies and disaster response. Gold has become a major source of revenue in sustaining the war between the Sudanese armed forces and paramilitary rapid support forces. Since fighting broke out in 2023, tens of thousands of people have been killed, millions have been displaced, triggering what the United Nations has called the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Moving over to the Republic of Benin now, which has temporarily eliminated the autonomous National Electoral Commission responsible for organizing the country's election. The decision on SENA, as it is popularly known, has been presented as a budget-saving measure. Recent reforms established 7-year mandates for the country's president, deputies and municipal councillors, obviating the needs for elections in the near future. Authorities have announced a transitional period for a new body. They say they will define a new institutional framework adapted to the recent reforms. SENA's remit includes supervising electoral operations, ensuring that elections are conducted properly, and helping to ensure the credibility of the results. But in recent years, questions have been raised about its effectiveness. For now, the Council of Ministers will set out how to avoid SENA's current commitments and how its assets will be preserved. The Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye continues to make changes to his cabinet, announcing recently he has appointed veteran magistrate Ousmane Diané as president of the Constitutional Council, succeeding the late Mamadou Badio Camara. The appointment comes amid heightened security of the court after a landmark ruling on constitutional reform. This is according to a decree signed on Monday, July 13. Already serving as a member of the country's highest constitutional court, Diané succeeds the late Mamadou Camara and assumes leadership of an institution responsible for reviewing the constitutionality of legislation, overseeing electoral disputes, and ensuring the regularity of National Assembly. After being referred by President Faye, the court rules the legislation has not been adopted in accordance with the procedures required under Article 82 of the Constitution, rendering the reform invalid. Chad's Prime Minister Abdoulaye Fadoul says the upcoming third Russia-Africa summit would provide an opportunity to advance the partnership between Russia and all African countries. He was making the comment during the press conference that followed a meeting with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow earlier today. Fadoul praised Moscow's stance regarding the reform of the UN Security Council in order to bring into alignment with new global realities. The foreign minister also stressed that economic relations between Chad and Russia were practically unnoticeable and did not correspond to the existing potential, saying, "We intend to advocate, and have already begun to do so, the cooperation between the Russian Federation and Chad, as well as with other African countries, should not be limited to or reduced exclusively to security and defense issues. Russia is a great power, not only militarily, but also economically, and it is in all our interest to make efforts so that investments and Russian investors can also gain a market share in our countries. Both ministers later signed an intergovernmental agreement introducing a visa-free travel for holders of diplomatic and service passports. The third Russia-Africa summit is expected to take place on October 28th to the 29th in Moscow, Russia. Well, staying in Moscow, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, during his meeting with the Chadian Foreign Minister, said Kyiv wants to inflict damage and intimidate Moscow by attempting to disrupt food supplies to Africa in the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea, calling it pure terrorism, but saying he would not stop Russia helping its friends. He did promise that Russia would continue to fulfill its obligations regarding food supplies to African friends under commercial contracts and within the framework of humanitarian aid. It follows reports of ongoing attacks on shipping in the area. Mr. Lavrov said that the Blue Stream gas pipeline to Turkey is regularly subjected to terrorist attacks, and that Moscow is calling on Ankara to give public assessment of these events and send a harsh, stern signal to Kyiv. The foreign minister also stressed that Russia is waging an uncompromising struggle on various fronts in providing all kinds of assistance to Africa. Just last week, Russian presidential spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Moscow had repeatedly drawn Ankara's attention to Kyiv's attempts to strike facilities supporting the operation of the Blue Stream and Turk Stream gas pipelines. Gazprom reported that a drone attacked the Krasnokarskaya compressor station, part of the Blue Stream gas supply system. The company said the attack aimed to disrupt Russian gas supplies to Turkey, but prompt action prevented any disruption to deliveries. AU chairperson Mahmoud Ali Yusuf is in the Malian capital today for a two-day official visit to strengthen dialogue with the country's transitional authorities. Security, the political transition, and cooperation with the continental body are on top agenda for the meeting. He stated that the recent attacks in Mali, which he declared killed many Malians, including General Sadio Kamara, have been a shock to the entire continent, and that Mali is confronting the terrorist threat on behalf of Africa. Yusuf stressed that the African Union is ready to support a Malian-led process to restore peace and stability, leading to elections and a return to constitutional order, saying Mali's suspension from the African Union's political institutions is not intended to isolate the country. Rather, it is a way of reaffirming our shared values and procedures, while also saying to Mali, we stand beside you as you move forward in this political process. Mali has been suspended from the African Union since the 2021 military takeover. The African Union explained the suspension is meant to uphold constitutional order while maintaining dialogue with Bamako and supporting a return to civilian rule. Here in Nigeria, the former special advisor on security to the Oyo State government, Fatai Owusheni, has urged a more responsive state government, having attributed the recent rescue of the Orire kidnapped victims to the cooperation of the Oyo State government, the people and security operatives, rather than just full reliance on the federal government. The former commissioner of police in Lagos State, who confirmed the release of the Oyo school headmaster who was kidnapped just days after the release of the Orire students and teachers, calls for a more responsive state government across the nation.
If you have a state where the governor is more responsible and responsive to certain things and is able to provide some of the wherewithals, rather than, saying I'm running to Abuja, sit down with his security operatives in the state and, map out strategy. It may work faster. That is what. Then how do you bridge the trust deficit? Because in the case of Ogbomoso, this last incident, I must say it is not because I'm from this state. Everybody showed concern. People are ready to volunteer information. We have been doing that here. So information matters. These guys are not kept, they are not spirits. People will see them, and it now depends on how these people are able to translate that to intelligence for those operatives that will work. And again, in some of these things, the narratives that are given out, you mentioned that even yesterday an headmaster was kidnapped. That narrative was given out as if this headmaster was picked in the school. This is an headmaster that was coming from his farm. We are not saying it should happen. Nobody has even reported to say, oh, his release has been secured. So some of these narratives sometimes don't help us. So the difference is how much of cooperation you have from the community and how much of readiness the state is there to support.
Meanwhile, the Oyo State Governor, Seyi Makinde, has called for investigations into the abduction of the now rescued teachers and the students from Orire local government area of the state. According to him, Nigerians deserve a full and transparent account of what happened, who was responsible, whether there were institutional failures, negligence or collusion at any level, and what measures must be taken to ensure that no community is ever subjected to such an ordeal again.
Reunion of these children and teachers with their families does not mark the end of this painful chapter. It marks the beginning of another responsibility, our collective responsibility to establish the truth. The circumstances surrounding this incident are sufficiently grave and unusual to warrant independent scrutiny beyond our domestic institutions. I therefore, with a full sense of responsibility as the Executive Governor of Oyo State, call on the appropriate international human rights and accountability mechanisms, including those within the United Nations system, to closely examine the facts surrounding this abduction and the circumstances of its resolution. Such scrutiny is not intended to undermine our institutions. Rather, it is intended to reinforce public confidence that the truth will be established and that every person found to bear responsibility, regardless of office, influence, or affiliation, will be held accountable.
We're off on a short break now. We'll continue with more updates on the Orire situation, as well as teachers in Nigeria are calling for more to be done with security. Also, children in Togo spending summer camp learning how to build robots, writing codes, and exploring artificial intelligence. Join us again. Welcome back. We'll continue with security here in Nigeria as the Nigeria Union of Teachers asks government at all levels to prioritize the security of schools across the country. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, the national president of the union, Comrade Audu Amber, described the rescue of the abductees, that's the Orire students and teachers, as a commendable development, but stressed the urgent need to secure the release of 42 school children abducted from Musa in Askira Uba local government area of Borno State, along with others who are still in captivity.
The atmosphere at the national headquarters of the Nigeria Union of Teachers radiates joy and excitement as the teachers sing songs of solidarity over the rescue of the abducted school children and teachers from Oyo State.
There is victory for all.
Although the abducted school children have regained freedom, the Nigeria Union of Teachers believes abducted students from other states deserve urgent attention.
The NUT is particularly alarmed
by the recent adoption of 42 school children from Musa in Askira Uba local government area of Borno State, as well as the adoption of 1 teacher and 36 students, and the killing of 2 teachers in Lassa, Borno State. These attacks have left many families devastated, disrupted the education of thousands of children, and deepened the already existing learning crisis confronting our educational system. Again, this incident further demonstrates that schools remain attractive target for terrorists, bandits, and other criminal elements.
The issue of intermittent attacks on schools is also of concern to the union.
The kidnapping and killing of teachers and learners constitute gross violation of fundamental human rights and represent a direct assault on every child's constitutional right to equal education. The union, therefore, calls on the federal government, state government, security agency, and all relevant stakeholders to, as a matter of urgency, 1, intensify effort to rescue all teachers, learners, and other innocent Nigerians still in captivity. Full implement and strengthen the Safe School initiative across the country. Deploy adequate security personnel and modern surveillance system to vulnerable schools.
With the rescue of the abducted school children from Oyo State, the Nigeria Union of Teachers believes government at all levels can be more proactive to prevent more abductions.
We turn our attention now to health matters, kicking off in the Central African Republic, still battling a growing cholera outbreak, with health authorities reporting 436 confirmed cases and 37 deaths, mainly in Bimbo and Mbaiki, as officials work to contain the spread. Manager of the Cholera Response Team, Dr. Germain Piamale, says since June 2026, we have recorded 436 cases. Unfortunately, out of those cases, we have registered 37 deaths across 9 health districts. The doctor confirmed no new cases had been recorded in the previous 2 to 3 days, crediting government awareness campaigns and public cooperation for helping slow transmission. The doctor says the situation is now somewhat under control thanks to the measures taken by the government, particularly public awareness efforts and Central African population's adherence. In another development, dozens of medical staff at an Ebola treatment center in Ituri in the DRC have staged a strike, saying they have not been paid since the outbreak spread across northeastern DRC in May. The workers gathered around fires outside Rwampara General Hospital on Monday, with fences blocking access to the compound. Treatment facilities used by doctors and frontline staff also stood empty as the strike continues, they say they've been working without pay and are facing serious hardship and do not know what to do. Other staff members ask, why does nobody want to pay us? We will not work today. If we're not paid, we will not work tomorrow either. Patients and relatives have had to climb over the fences to reach loved ones inside the treatment center, with many expressing frustration and concern. Some staff reportedly began their strike last week, leaving patients inside the facility with little or no care. Authorities stated they are verifying the identities of frontline workers to ensure salaries are paid to the correct staff. Well, despite the strike action, authorities in the DRC say they're stepping up Ebola preparedness in Kisangani, where a larger treatment center is being built to handle any rising cases. People have been arriving at Kisangani 50th Anniversary Hospital, where you have hand washing stations at the entrance, medical staff at work, and daily life across the city. Health Minister Roger Kamba is reported to have said the new infrastructure should be ready within 3 weeks, suggesting a target around early August 2026. Valet said public concern was understandable, but insists the situation remains under control, saying fear is natural, But I would say there's more of a scare than actual harm because measures are in place for the moment we have the necessary sources. He says the hospital has enough equipment to care for confirmed Ebola patients, partly through support from the Médecins Sans Frontières. And it is summertime for many countries around the world. Keeping children occupied is always a major priority. In Togo, children are swapping playtime for learning periods, where they're getting their hands-on experience with tech and AI. Take a look.
It's summertime again, and for children in Togo, it's time to learn lessons not always taught in the classroom. Children as young as 8 are learning to build robots, write codes, and explore artificial intelligence at the Lomé Digital School summer camp. The 2-month program is helping to tackle the country's digital skills gap, encourage more girls into technology, and support the country's ambition to become a regional tech hub.
Everyone needs digital skills because with the rise of artificial intelligence, most professions are going to be transformed. At Salome Digital School, what we're trying to do is teach people how to learn so that in the years ahead, even if the jobs they'll have in 20 or 25 years don't exist today, they'll be able to adapt and thrive.
Younger children focus on building robots, while teenagers aged 13 to 17 develop software applications. Hira Azra says she's working on a project to build a bubble-blowing robot for her little brother so he can have fun playing with it. Hands-on projects give children from different backgrounds the chance to develop practical digital solutions, while scholarships support participants from low-income families. The program is running as Africa faces a major shortage of digital skills. The continent is expected to account for 42% of the world's youth population by 2030. Reports covering 15 African countries found that only 9% of people aged 15 to 24 had basic computer skills, with young women less likely to have those skills than young men.
And as we end the program, here's our fun fact for the day. Did you know the Democratic Republic of Congo is the second largest country in Africa by land area and possesses an estimated $24 trillion in untapped natural resources, including the world's largest reserves of cobalt, which are essential for modern electronics. The country also holds about half of all the forests in Africa and contains the Congo Basin, which is the second largest rainforest on Earth and actively helps lower Earth's temperature by absorbing massive amounts of toxins from the air. And now you know. Thanks for watching Network Africa. A reminder here for our viewers on the DSTV platform. Coming up next is a documentary on the Cross River State Governor Bassi Edet Otu's third-year milestone. That's just for our viewers on the DSTV platform. And more programming continues for our viewers on the other platforms. Stay here on Channels Television. I'm Amarachi Ubani.